pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call please, Mayor.
Mayor Adrian Sandoval.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Larry Clark.
Here.
Harold Leggett.
Here.
Nick Ralston.
Here.
Spencer Bradnan.
Here.
Troy Blum.
Here.
Hope Morris.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Make a motion to approve the agenda. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carried. Audience participation. We have Refuel Colorado Charging Station presentation, Northern Colorado Clean Cities, Shapley, and I'm not going to try your last name.
And Diego.
And Diego. Nice to have you guys here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll start. I lost my voice, but we've been in existence in Northern Colorado Clean Cities for 23 years now, and it's under the Department of Energy. So there's 100 of us nationwide, and we've got all kinds of projects going on. And Diego's going to talk a little bit about the Refuel Colorado, electric vehicles, natural gas and such, and where you can find some money to put in some infrastructure. So, thanks, Diego.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all for having me, and I did pass out some information there. We'll be going over some of that. But just like Chevy was saying, I'm the co-coordinator for the Northern Colorado Clean Cities. It's a nonprofit, so we're here just to specifically work with Colorado. And it's really to advance the nation's economic, energy, and environmental security. And the way that we really do that is trying to find affordable methods, affordable ways to implement these types of alternative fuels or electric vehicles. Specifically in Colorado, we have what's called Refuel Colorado. So this is out of the Colorado Energy Office. So that's generally where we get a lot of our information from, a lot of the money comes from. And Refuel Coaches, which is essentially what I do, that first page, that single handout, goes over what Refuel Colorado does. But essentially what we do is help communities, businesses, and government leaders identify monetary savings and other advantages from switching to alternative fuel vehicles or electric vehicles. We also can connect you with fuel providers, manufacturers, and engineers in the field so that you essentially can get those specific technical questions answered. Essentially why we're here is to improve or increase the confidence that you have when purchasing these electric vehicles or the electric vehicle stations, alternative fuel vehicles. So we want to make sure you have all the financial, environmental information up front. And so this is actually, this page right here that I passed out, will show you, what we're trying to promote. On that page, this will be where my contact info will be. But this is going to be the first program that I'll go over. It's called Alt Fuels Colorado. So that's the first program that a refuel coach can help you with. It's statewide funding for CNG, LPG, or electric vehicle charging stations, specifically the DC fast charging stations. And then also, of course, the public and private vehicles that fall specifically in this 11-county Front Range area. We actually cover 80% of the incremental cost, and there's no scrappage requirement. So we can go through, again, the best practices of how to switch to a vehicle, how to fill out this type of application, and then also there are calculators, tools that we have online that will help you decide on whether or not this is the best decision for you. They'll have, it's called fueleconomy.com, so they'll go over essentially how much this fuel will cost you, how much you're saving overall. The next program, also covering electric vehicles and alternative vehicles is called Charge Ahead Colorado. So this particular program might be something that we can also potentially apply for. It's really broken out into two different sections. There's a certain section outside the 7-county Denver metro area, and then the inside the Denver metro area. And I guess the real reason for that is because there are different needs when we look at a city versus the Front Range, the entire Front Range. And so for that, again, what they're funding are level 2 and DC fast charging stations. We can see the exact amounts there that they're giving out. But again, we will go over with you what an application would look like, and generally what this, how this funding would affect your return on investment. So again, so this is really for vehicle stations. This is for vehicles, both public and private. There is another program that we can go over as well for transit buses. Also, this is for electric, again, electric, CNG, LPG, or even biodiesel. So depending on the need or the application for the city, we can go through each fuel to see which one is best for you. And for the transit buses, another thing to highlight is that this is statewide, so there's really not any barrier as far as location. The last thing that I like to cover, besides tax credits, the one of the last programs that we also like to advise on, specifically it's for vehicles and infrastructure for public fleets. This particular program is really working in conjunction with a larger idea of producing a corridor, so that the barrier of refueling either from electric, CNG, or LPG will not be a hindrance. It will not be as much of a barrier. The corridor that we're talking about, and this is again on the Colorado Energy website, all of the funding for the public fleets that they have here, that they have outlined here, is for these specific corridors. So we are in charge of Corridor A, this top one right here. And again, all of these corridors, they're already taken into account what we already have in our infrastructure, what types of fueling stations. These are, this is essentially a map of what we would like to see in 2020 even. So Corridor A, by the way, covers US 40 and US 36. So those are generally what we're looking for as far as in the applications. If we can go ahead and apply for all of them, that would be great. But this particular program, I always try and make sure that this is for a public fleet, and this will encourage that corridor that we have there. So those are the basic programs that we can that we're offering. Some other things that Clean Cities as a whole again offers as well on our website. Fueleconomy.gov, that's just generally for light duty vehicles, just generally for your community. They're just wanting some general tips on how to save energy. So besides just where that money is, that's what we also do. We do outreach and educational events. One in particular that we're doing will be in Greeley for National Drive Electric Week. So we'll be, again, promoting electric vehicles, where can you purchase electric vehicle, and some of the benefits for those. So those are the basics that I have. I'll open it for questions. And again, one of those sheets of paper will have my contact information. So I always like to set up an advising session to go over some of your questions, your barriers, to convert to an alternative fuel or electric vehicle.
I've got a question for you. What does scrappage mean?
Scrappage, yeah. So there are some programs that, in order to switch out the electric vehicle, they do require you to actually drill a hole in it. and essentially
Destroy it.
dispose it, destroy it.
Okay.
There are some other programs within here that don't require that at all. So that's the main difference. Those are the main differences there.
I'm gonna chime in. Are you familiar with the Volkswagen settlement?
Yes.
So Colorado got $6 million. They were fined $2.7 billion. So that pot of money is requiring the scrappage. So it depends on what bucket you're getting your money from with the requirements.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I had a diesel Jetta.
Oh, so you got good. So they've got a lot to pay. And we don't want to advertise for them, so we don't say Volkswagen settlement a lot. We say the settlement.
The settlement. Gotcha.
So if we wanted to put electric charging station and I'm just gonna talk in general terms here, what kind of funding are you guys getting for a small community like ours in order to do that? What's the typical out-of-pocket cost that the towns typically put up?
That's a good
Do you have
question.
those kind of numbers?
So we do have some case studies, and if I went on the internet, that's what I would show you. That's where we would go to first. Compare the sizes, compare the barriers that we typically see, and see what best practices we can come up from that. But what I would typically see is the Charge Ahead Colorado program. That's what we would typically look at. And as far as, it's the difference between what type of charging station you would look at, level 2 or DC.
And if you put the charging station in close to the building where you don't have a lot of wiring and ripping up, it's a lot cheaper. So it
We have
depends on-
NREL, National Renewable Energy Lab, and we have some engineers in the Department of Energy that we can also inquire on and get some advice on specifically what types of technologies we need. That's a good question.
How recently did Fort Lupton and Bright put in new charging stations? I noticed there's charging stations down by the mall in Brighton, I believe, and then of course Fort Lupton. Were those 2 years ago or recently?
So, Claude Haynes, we worked with him for probably a couple of years ago.
Okay.
And he just sent the report and was very surprised at the use. They never imagined it to be used that much.
Oh, really?
And I have the report if you ever wanted to see it.
Okay.
So if you get the money, and Claude would be a good resource.
Yeah.
We worked with him for decades, I have. So they can tell you, what it costs to put in, you have a choice, a card reader, which would cost more, but then you get money back. Or do you want to just provide free, like Lafayette where I live? They just have free charging stations around town. So those are decisions you would make.
Okay.
I guess I have a question about free charging stations. Because the power is coming from somewhere,
Right.
XL or
Yep.
whomever.
Yep.
So they don't give power away.
No, it's free to the public. Who's using it, because they're not paying.
Somebody get a bill.
Like, yeah,
So who's picking up the
in
bill?
Lafayette, it's Lafayette.
It's the town.
Yeah, and they've got a big solar garden, and, they're just a little bit ahead. This is Boulder and everywhere else. So it all
Right.
depends on who your provider is, if it's XL Energy or Platte River Power, and there's different rate structures. So
Uh-huh.
you need to be careful of the high peak
Mhm.
and things like that. So it's a
So-
learning curve.
So, in what you do you have recommendations as to where to locate these charging stations? I mean, I think in terms of just this town initially, the only place that makes sense, or that comes to mind first, I should say, is somewhere adjacent to town hall, where someone could come and plug their vehicle in, because there isn't really, Les, a mall.
Or a rec center.
A similar setting, yeah, a recreation center, yeah. So the town would initially be, or potentially forever, paying the electric bill.
Well, you can put a card reader in, people come and swipe their card and charge.
Okay,
So you have that option.
Okay.
You don't have to provide free charging. A lot of it's very controversial. In some places, I
So do you
understand.
have, I mean, as a matter of doing business, have recommendations or a list of recommendations for appropriate locations of these charging stations?
Every town is different, every single
Okay.
We do have
community.
templates for surveys, we do, of course, recommend low stress areas where a person's gonna be longer than 30 minutes or an hour. But yeah, surveys are a really good thing that we can provide, and that might give us some insight on where the best place would work.
On 85 would be ideal.
Sure.
On the highway?
Very, very close.
There's,
At Fort Vasquez, for instance, where there used to
You
be a
know,
way
that would
station.
be a great place to put it.
You could go
Personally.
either way.
Now, is that CDOT?
It is.
This
Yeah.
is through Colorado.
And they just put in charging stations up in the Greeley new building. And they've got them down at the new building down in Denver. So again, a good resource. And we don't really say charge point is a good one, or we don't direct to a, because we're not
Do
selling.
you find CDOT to be receptive to these types of?
Oh, when I ask, I'm sure. I retired from CDOT. So I have a lot of, yeah.
Friends there.
Yeah. So I'd be happy to help
Okay, I mean,
connect.
I'm
the
not
dots.
sure, but there used to be a way station
yes,
here, and I had no idea whether they plan to reopen that or.
CSP's talked about it.
I'm not sure about that.
Really good still, so it's.
It's been abandoned for, what, 3 years or more? Oh, and you mentioned this website. I see one that's on your literature. One you mentioned, Colorado
there's
Energy
two.
website. Do you have a more complete?
Let's see, and I actually have a handout, another handout that I have, so I can do that.
CEO, Colorado Energy Office.
I just Googled it and it came up right here. Cleancities.energy.gov.
On that chart you got there, the one with the different corridors,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
map, I guess. It looks like 85 has a line.
Yeah, that's another one.
Is that not one that you guys work
It
with?
is, it is.
It is?
We're just giving an example of one.
Okay. Right.
85 is also.
So we could potentially work in that realm as well. There'd be like charging stations in that program as well?
That's right, to try and build that corridor, so that's exactly what we're doing, yeah, that's exactly it.
So when people plug into these, how long does it take to charge?
Depends on the charging station.
Let's say we do the DC one you're talking about, the one that people are gonna wanna come to, right? We don't wanna put one in that no one really wants to go to.
So two things that we have to, that I always remind myself. So, like, let's say they start from 0, then that would be about an hour and a half. DC fast charging is the fastest one. The level 2 is still going to be within 4 hours, and that's again starting at 0. For the most part, though, generally all of us drive within 50, 60 miles a day, so you'll probably only be at a half tank or a half level. And so you'll just need to top it off. So in that regard, it'll take 20, 30 minutes to get to the top. So those, it's a little bit different, but about an hour for that fast charging.
And the cost on a level 2 versus a fast charger, can you give us any example of what difference is?
They do, it is more for a DC fast charging station. The actual price though.
It's up there. It's very expensive.
Yeah, it's up there.
You know.
I can definitely give you some case studies on that.
That'd be great.
So if we were to look at moving ahead with something like a fast charger, what would be our first step?
Apply.
Apply for money. Okay.
We also promote workplace charging. So if there's a large employment center, that's also a good place to put a charging station so that employees can plug in.
It'll be a half private, half public.
And then multifamily.
That's good.
And then multifamily dwellings, as well as we're doing group buy buys. So Greeley Nissan did a group buy, so big cuts, like $10,000 for if you're an Excel Energy. It's, you know, amazing deals. And I think they sold 6 vehicles on our last group buy. So, you know, those incentives, every little bit helps. Also, AFDC, it's Alternative Fuel Data Center, AFDC, and then put in station locator. And you can find all the charging stations wherever you are, or natural gas stations. It's a tool. You put in your zip code, you say electric, and it'll show you there's none here.
You can download it as an app if you want that, but
It's a great tool.
Okay. So I know several people who they map their route according to stations.
Yeah, and that will do it. The FTC station locator. So all these are Department of Energy tools that we use in this network throughout the nation.
So we would apply first just to see what we qualify for, and then we can make a decision based on the funding that's available.
But you'd have to decide amongst yourselves where, what, you know, all the details, and then apply. So I'd say first thing is print out that application and sit down together and make a plan, and then fill it out.
one of the questions on the application is, have you done a survey, or like what is the type of, who really wants this, who's going to be benefiting from this charging station? So yeah, so again, we have some templates, we can help you with those types of things, and but yeah, I would download that application, review that, and if you're coming into any barriers, give me a call and we can set up an advising session.
And we find that application.
On the Colorado Energy Office website.
Refuel Colorado.
Refuel Colorado.
Yeah, it's all in there. You won't believe the resources.
And then there will also be some example applications, so you can see what a successful application looks like.
Okay.
And then I have some others if you're using some others.
And then you can also call Claude Haynes and say, hey Claude, send us your application.
That might be the first step.
Right, and Lock Buoy did one not too many years back too, and they put theirs at town hall.
Schools, if there's a bunch of teachers that have electric vehicles, makes sense. So, yeah.
Okay.
I would say US 85 is your biggest positive for an application that you're part of the corridor, blah, blah, blah.
Does Department of Motor Vehicles or any other like organization keep statistics on the number of electric vehicles and where they are in the state, so we can access that information?
I don't know if you can access it. I mean, I think you can ask them for it, because every electric vehicle owner has to pay $50 extra, because they don't pay gas tax for our roads, right? So that doesn't make sense. So now they're hitting them up with that, and that money is going towards,
I thought it was just going to corridors, but I'll look that up. That's a good
for infrastructure.
infrastructure.
It would not only help us, but any other community that's considering such a thing, if they can access that information from DMV.
Right.
You know, part of your application, you ask the question, who would benefit from it? Well, obviously, people who own electric cars, but we have no way of knowing who owns them and where they are. It's kind of hard to answer the question as to who's going to benefit from it. I don't have any way of knowing that.
I'm fortunate enough to have an interaction with DMV in the next few days, so I could ask.
Rattle their cage, huh?
That'd be great. Yeah. And like I said, we can try and help. But the state, he's a member of Northern Colorado Clean Cities, and they have worked with us for 20 years. And they provide us lots of different resources. So the state fleet is way into all different types of alternative fuels. And it's good to see. Last Upper Front Range meeting I came to here, how many CNG vehicles were out there at a time? I mean, so you guys are doing a good job. Yeah.
Any other questions? guys for all the information and coming down and talking with us.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. We're happy to help.
Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda, which include the regular meeting minutes for July 17th, Colorado School Safety Funding, MOU, Rogers Farm Investments, Crow Creek Construction, and Farmers Independent Fish Company, and revocable license agreement with Sarah Wood.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Alright, motion carried. And action items. I am going to recess the meeting.
You want to take your
Yes.
do this properly. At 7:27, I'd like to open a public hearing regarding a special event permit, 508 Reynolds Avenue, August 18th, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. to Harvest Daze. And I'd like to open it to any public comment there might be. Or any comment from the members of the board. I'd like to also ask our esteemed town clerk if she would like to contribute information.
This is the annual special event permit that would allow the town to sell liquor during Harvest Daze. Beer, and this is a full liquor license. I don't believe the spirits have been purchased yet, so it could be a variety of items for sale only Saturday during the day, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Manager, would you like to add any comments to this public hearing?
The application is fully complete, along with, you'll see the map of the Harvest Daze event on Saturday, and the venue is basically the horseshoe, mud volleyball, the corridor that connects over to the concession stand. It does incorporate the community senior center, but obviously there won't be alcohol in those buildings. But people will have access to the restroom in the community center. And we'll be putting a temporary fence in, hopefully the railing we get, the cattle guard from High Plains Cattle for the north of town will basically split that parking lot, the ball fields in half, and that will, and the food vendors and such will be in there, so. No alcohol in the kids zone, in the ball fields, we're having the car show, we're outside this red perimeter that's in the back.
We do a security at the gate, like we've been.
The officers, right away, the officers will be stationed, approximately 3 of them inside the beer garden for the early events, the horseshoe and mud volleyball. And then when I talked to Carl, the chief today, all his officers are working, so there'll always be at least 5 officers on at all times.
So we're not gonna contract,
We're not gonna contract, we tried to buy our own last year, worked just fine with having the additional 2 SROs, and they were assigned down there for most of the day. Then the evening officers come on shift and they were leaving. So it worked out fairly well. We had to work out the details a little bit as far as managing that parking lot area where the band's gonna be that night, because it's staff, and I was talking this afternoon, the actual beer garden itself for the dance area for the band is significantly larger now. It used to be much smaller. So we're gonna talk about that more. So Ben and I are definitely going down tomorrow morning to kind of walk it off and see if we can set more of we can allow some for parking and then others for some internal areas so we can regulate it better. But that's a good question.
Is a motion appropriate to, at this time? Then I'd call for a roll call.
Close the public hearing at the time, and then
Call for
move a motion in a second,
Okay.
and then
Well,
adjourn.
now, if there were no objections, I'll close the public hearing at 7:30. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
I make a motion to approve the special event permit at 508 Reynolds Avenue on August 18th, 2018 from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. in the town of Platteville as presented.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries.
Okay. Thank you, Larry.
If we may we adjourn the liquor license authority and reopen the board of trustees?
Yep. I adjourn the liquor license authority and reopen the meeting for the public, or board of trustees. Okay, moving on, I have agreement for services, JVA Incorporated. Mr. Rankin?
Mr. Mayor. JVA was here previously to discuss and provide input on a proposal to update the 2011 wastewater utility plan. For funding reasons with Farm Local Affairs, David did send out an RFP request for proposals from several other firms. He did speak to them. They knew up front, we did not beat around the bush, that JVA did the initial plan in 2011, and they had put in a proposal to update the plan they did in 2011. But due to Mr. Sandoval, our regional manager, Dolan, we had to put those out. We did not receive any other responses, which did not surprise me, but we were upfront with them, what we're trying to accomplish. The other firms we did contact are interested in doing additional work or future work for us and doing on other projects, so that's good, because the next step is to do the full engineering design for the wastewater treatment facility. It won't be sewer, it will be treatment facility. So that'll be coming up probably in the next year and a half. Dave and I are very comfortable working with Kevin Tone and Josh, his associate with JVA, along with Steve Butheris, our engineer. I'm recommending, depending on any questions you have, that we move forward with the contract with JVA, pending the town attorney finalize a contract with JVA, and the DOLA grant actually gets signed on the 21st of August, once it arrives from DOLA.
Nice.
Because I don't want JVA doing the work until that funding is approved. So that's all I have.
Any questions? I'll entertain a motion.
Okay, sorry, I guess I do have one question.
Oh.
How soon is the timeline on receiving the results of this study from JVA?
JV initially, when we talked to him back in June, had hoped to have started the update, the study this past month, so we've been delayed. At the earliest they start the last week of August, pending the DOLA contract. This next week after basically after Harvest Daze, we told them not to bother us during Harvest Daze week. So it'll be probably after that 21st meeting where they start working on it. They still believe, Kevin told me, I talked to him at CML in June, and also during the last couple of weeks, still believe that they can get it done by December, which is still meet our timeline, because our goal in 2018 is to update the study, and the part of this is the rate study, so that's that key number everybody wants to see, what utility base rates may go up for water use or wastewater use. And then the design and engineering must be completed by the end of 2019, and that's another funding that we'll have to pursue through DOLA or through Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment has a grant of up to $350,000, which rough estimate right now is takes about $500,000 to design it. I know that sounds like a lot of money, but there's a lot of work involved. So that has to be done by the end of 2019 per our compliance schedule from CDPHE. And then we have to have funding secured through loans or bonds, hopefully loans, not bonds, or grants, by the end of 2020. And then we must have that plant built by December 31st in 2021. So it's a pretty strict window.
So this year's budget, we're gonna have to go kind of in the dark as far as how much the design is gonna cost us, just based on the $500,000 estimate, right? And then next year we'll be able to kind of get some hard numbers.
Working with JV is nice. I mean, they're one of many firms that are good at what they do. The JVA coincidentally just completed a very similar size wastewater new treatment facility for a very similar size community as Platteville. And I'm very optimistic that those are just year-old numbers, so they'll be able to provide us with some fairly good cost estimates, I think, since they're so recent.
That's all I have.
Okay. And entertain a motion?
I make a motion that the board enter into an agreement for services with JVA Incorporated and their subcontractor, easy for me to say, Raptalis Financial Consultants Incorporated.
Second.
I have a motion and a second.
Pending review
Oh.
Pending review
by
by the
legal
town attorney
counsel and authorized mayor to execute same.
and authorize mayor to do same. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, cause it's gonna cost money. Can I have a roll call, please?
Harold Leggett,
Yes.
Nick Ralston,
Aye.
Spencer Bradman,
Yes.
Troy Blum,
Aye.
Colt Morris, Larry Clark.
All right.
Alrighty. And moving forward. Action item B, CDOT Division of Transit and Rail Grant, Senior Bus. Mr. Rankin?
Thank you. This grant did come through recently. Excuse me, and I've outlined in my report how the process will go. Once you approve this grant, or this contract with CDOT Transit and Rail, I will start, not right away, probably September, because CDOT is finalizing their proposals to the vendors on who gets the award for the next 4 years. They do 4-year increments, and we happen to be applying for this when the 4-year lapse and the new 4-year term starts. I was told by Mike Akers, which is out of Colorado Springs, with a transit bus, the same company that Johnstown Senior Center purchased their bus. They're one of the few in Colorado you can actually that provides this service. So I will have to get at least 3 bids to meet CDOT requirements. And once I receive those, I send them to CDOT for approval. They tell me which one we choose, typically the lowest one. And coincidentally, the company at Colorado Springs has been obtaining most of them for Colorado because of the saved costs for transportation and distribution, obviously. The original company this is a sub-company, and the original company is out of California that does the bus. And this would be a new manufactured bus. It's not a floor model. It's actually built to suit. So part of what we do after this approval is I talk to the senior boards, before I talk to the mayor, and work out the spec sheet on high backs, low backs, cloth color, luggage racks, type of engine, those kind of details. And then again, those 3 bids or estimates, proposals have to be sent to CDOT. And then once they approve that, then we start doing the acquisition part. Again, I can't buy it without CDOT approving it, even though we pay all the money up front. And that'll be done next spring. We really won't transfer any money or purchase anything until spring 2019. We pay for the full amount. CDOT cuts the check for 80%. And the other 20%, as I indicated, will put the budget as donations or fundraising. So that $78,000 and change is the grant amount I applied for based upon a firm estimate from Johnstown on their bus. But I think we'll be getting a smaller version of the bus. So it's hard to tell. Well, we can't exceed that. But I'm thinking we'll be closer to 70 or 65 when we're done. I just won't know until we do that.
How big was the Johnstown bus capacity?
It was a 14 passenger. We're looking at doing a 12 passenger. A little smaller, and that'll fit inside the garage over there.
So you anticipate the town actually taking ownership and using it late 2019?
No, I think we'll take ownership, and on page, I think it's page 17 of the actual grant for the contract, which is Exhibit A.
Well, April 30th.
Yeah, looking at April 30th this is just projections. And I have to go online and do this update. It's called code trams. It's part of the CDOT. All their grants now are going to code trams. So if we ever do any more CMAC apps, anything like that, it's all online application. Both for the grant, then once you get the grant, you have to do milestones and do updates. So all this changed now. So even with this, I have to attend a quarterly webinar on not just my application, but there are quite 50 out there. That's just Parks on the webinar because they have and Bell's on the webinar because they have large transit systems. We're just bike bus, so ours is a little simple. But I'm hoping to have it up and running and ready to go by early May. I'm hoping. So
I wasn't sure what you were saying, it's getting custom built, that way, by the time we pay for it, then we actually take delivery.
yeah, it takes Mike Akers down Colorado Springs. It's about 3 months because this is not a big. It's not a huge transit bus like Bell uses for public transit or Greeley Evans. It's much smaller. So I indicate the seniors already received some funding. They're going to work with the Lions Club and the Rotary to do some more fundraising to get the other matching funds. Our goal now is about 15,000 because that's the largest match we would have. We reached the whole 70,000 budget. So we're gonna keep working on that.
Wonderful.
So that's all I have on this action item.
That's great, good job. I move to accept the CDOT Transit Grants Program Grant Award as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. C, fire station letter notice of termination of right to purchase agreement. Mr. Rankin?
Your package is a very brief and to the point letter based upon the board's consensus last month not to pursue the contract for the Town of Fire District to acquire an existing fire station once a new station was built. I had Kenner look at it, it's pretty to the point. She just referenced the agreement and saying Mr. Gary Homiak, the president of the Fire District Board, the letter stating that we will not pursue that agreement and giving them at least a year plus notice so they can make preparations to sell it privately to a private person or business when the time comes. I just want your approval of this letter and to authorize me to sign it on the town's behalf and send it to President Homiak.
I did have one question about it. In the last meeting we talked, I think you had said that we didn't give any earnest money.
We still have it in the bank. Per the contract, they were holding it, so Kenner and I talked about it. So Mr. Homiak's going to respond to me saying, we don't have your earnest money, but we accept your, I'm assuming that's how it's going to
We
work.
never run it.
That's what I thought.
They never asked for it, but it's set aside in the budget.
This just washes us clean a bit.
Yes. She wanted to mention the actual dollar amount of earnest money in this letter. That was her purpose. So.
Makes sense. All right, so no action needs to be taken because everyone's happy. All right.
Were you asking for an authorization from the board to send a letter?
Asking the board's authorization for me to sign on behalf of the board to send this letter to the fire district.
So you want us to, can I have a motion?
Make a motion and consensus to
I make a motion to approve Mr. Rankin to sign this letter on behalf of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Platteville.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Sounds good, Troy. And then, moving on to reports, we have Troy.
Do we have to do that mutual understanding?
It was under the consent agenda, which means we all just, it's all through.
I apologize.
No, that's okay. If you ever want to move something off of the consent agenda to talk about it, we can move it down to, we'll just do an amendment and we'll move it down into the
just a discussion point. I hope I explained in my report with those consent items. Such as last meeting, I went ahead and signed that contract with State to start their code enforcement, because we need to get moving on it. And this is a similar thing with chief in the school district. They asked for grant funding and they need a letter ASAP on that safe rating review. And then of course,
Sounded like a no-brainer to me.
yeah. And the long-awaited fence repair replacement agreement with farmers and Journey Home.
Didn't look like the homeowners ended up having to foot any of the bill in that contract.
The only way they might is last I talked to Kern Trick, the attorney for Vidco, Farmers Independent Ditch Company, is if the owner does not sign the release to let them on the property to do construction, they won't fix the fence on that property. Then the owner would have to be responsible. So I'm suggesting to both parties, the ditch and Journey, that before they actually start construction, when in a few months when they stop filling the ditch, irrigation will be done, once corn's done, I'll host a meeting here at Town Hall to make sure this has been so long that the owners have
I was just gonna ask.
first-hand information on what's going to transpire, so they have more understanding. Because I'm gonna offer that, because we did have one here a couple of years ago for that same
I think
purpose.
that would be awesome.
Yes, thank you.
Otherwise, I always try to outline in further detail the agenda items in my report. I mentioned a few other matters that I'm working on. Mainly we're getting ready for Harvest Daze next week. I was out a couple of days last week for personal leave, and again, Thursday and Friday is one of my 5 boys decided to get married. So I'll be doing that. Next week, or next agenda, just to kind of a heads up, met with both Adrian and I met with Penny, Salazar, and Mike Evans to work out a basic MOU, memorandum of understanding between the town and the Veterans Committee. Involving the memorial, I think is in full agreement. I think Mike and Penny liked it. Adrian and I were in consensus that we're going to put that together. I'll put that together with Kendra, and that'll come to the board on the 21st. Same thing with the senior organization on the new senior center. It's an MOU. They'll outline responsibilities of both parties, use, operation, maintenance. It won't be too detailed, but it'll be an agreement that we can live by. Also, with that same conversation with Penny and Mike, from day one, when the memorial was being thought of as a facility at the cemetery, that it would be used for military funeral services. And we've already had a couple requests to have that. So there would be an amendment, or basically an edit to the municipal cemetery regulations, and a section will be added where that would be allowed. And I'll go into more detail in 2 weeks, but that's coming your way as well. And the property bids for the 3 properties that we're trying to sell right now, had a lot of inquiries. I've shown the shop a couple times, David has done as well. Calls about the empty lot over in Shoal. Really only 3 property owners couldn't really bid on the 2.5 acres up here by the ditch, because it's landlocked by those 3 property owners. All 3 are interested, which is good news, so.
Those bids, we're gonna open those in this meeting.
I was talking to Dave about it. I just need to run it by Kendra, because usually with sealed bids, once they come in, we open them and we make a spreadsheet. And then we give it to the board or whatever, or if it's small enough, I take action on it. So let me run by her which legally we should do, which way we should do that. If it should be open a la carte that meeting, or if we open them after the deadline and put the spreadsheet with those bidders in the board packet. I'll confirm that, you know, for sure.
Okay.
Okay. And then spreadsheet. And I mentioned that dollar grant will come in for the utility plan, and then also BNC, Brad Connell will be here because they received some more increases. So kind of give you a heads up, 2 weeks we'll have a number of items to take action on, plus all staff reports. A few little longer meetings in an hour.
Has there been any update on the survey and the attorney looking at the contract for the Platte River Farms property?
I did speak with Mr. Ken Bachman, as a CPA in Longmont, that representing Don Sherwood, the owner of that roughly 50 acres of Platte River Farms. We own the other 26 acres outlawed. The attorney, he wanted to, and it's just a long delay, but Mr. Bachman said he doesn't foresee any issues. Mr. Sherwood's in his 80s, he's very careful. He wanted his attorney to review the language to make sure there's not going to be any future ties to him, like easements or dedications. The attorney he wanted to review wasn't able to. So a few weeks ago, Mr. Bachman called me and said he found another land use attorney to review the contract, but he still doesn't see any issues with it. So I did touch base with Kendra and give her a heads up that, actually I told Mr. Bachman to contact Kendra directly, or have his attorney contact her directly, just to help facilitate this process. I'm trying to get it pushed to have it signed in the next 30 to 45 days, and then I'll get the appraiser scheduled up. Mr. Wiedemann, locally known with Wiedemann Auctioneers in real estate, sent me 3 prominent commercial property appraisals that do such large appraisals. Because this is basically a 98, 99 home subdivision when it's platted. So we need somebody with a little more expertise on how to appraise such a subdivision. So, good question. That's still pending. Left another message with Mr. Irmer at the Denver office of Excel. No word back yet. I thought I'd do it one more time and then reach out to the regional director out at Fort Collins, and I'll just have a talk with him. Lucas McConnell. Yeah. As you all know, the project started down at 66 Main. The pedestrian improvement looks like they're going to start pouring some concrete on some of those curbs at the elementary school side, the prep and the Dollar General side and the bank side. They give me a weekly schedule. Really no lane closures this week for the most part, but next week when they start tearing up the road to do the storm drainage improvements, that'll be a little bit more of a headache.
It'll be up on the sign, right, warning people?
I hope so. They've been in contact with me pretty well,
okay.
and they reached out. They sent not just myself, Carl and David, the information, but they sent to Will County, of course, the State Patrol, Fire District, the school district. So they've done a pretty good job.
That just be a lane closure during their work, or they have to close it for like a full couple of days?
They can't close it permanently. They have to do temporary closures. So they have to do one half of the intersection at a time, because they know that's such a big artery along 85 connecting to 25. Otherwise, US 60 and 52s will be flooded. So, what else is there? Mary, do you have anything that you've been on coming up?
No, nothing.
Okay.
You went over everything at the next meeting.
I did.
Does the board have any responsibilities for Harvest Daze, or ask of us of anything that we can help with?
We're going to have our final meeting next Wednesday, but as of right now, the board has always helped out different ways over the past years. We've always had the board want to help volunteer manage, the afternoon and evening beer garden. That's been an option. Sometimes board members have shown up early in the morning on Saturday at 7 to help put up tents and easy-ups over at the ball fields. That's not
always appreciated.
And that's their biggest manpower, quote unquote, time frame to get volunteers to help put them up. Because we're putting up 5 of our big event tents, which are 20 by 30 rectangles, and it takes a minimum of at least a half hour with 2 guys, maybe 4 guys to put them up. We got 5 to do in a 2-hour window, so it's kind of rush time from that
7 a.m.
7 to 9 time frame. So you try to get them up before the parade ends at 10, 15, 10:30. But we try not to wait till the last minute.
And that's the reason we don't have parade this week.
And then
The parade starts at 10. It'll be set up.
Come
Come on.
Adrian wants you to be in the parade, and
I know, sure we're getting
years ago on Friday night you used to have a dunk tank, and I had to sit on one year. You're lucky you have a dunk tank.
He has some camel pants there for that. Yeah.
Don't hesitate to ask.
Speaking of the parade,
Appreciate it.
there's transportation being provided for the board and mayor I don't know if everyone's familiar with that. Troy, you may not be.
You go for it?
And-
Well, the mayor and I are gonna be in the golf cart, and Spencer has volunteered to drive the convertible.
And that could be in the
Um,
convertible.
So, if you're down by the park, is that where the parade's starting now? By Lincoln Park and Division?
You sign in with Penny. Penny Salvador's gonna sign people in at basically an easy booth in the corner by the old cabinet museum. So right there at the museum at Division in Marion.
Okay.
Then you go down and get set up wherever she puts in the number. You'll be at toward the beginning.
Yep.
So you'll actually be set up on Salisbury alongside the elementary school, because you'll be one of the first entries.
I can text her.
So if you're gonna be in the parade, that's where you pick up the ride.
Our papers are already filled out, so they know our entries are in.
So typically, a lot of people will initially, as far, especially previous boards or dignitaries, will meet at town hall because we have facilities, you can park the car. You go down together on your floater, your vehicle down to the check-in, go get in line. And then the parade officially stops right here at town hall. So when they come around the corner off Main Street on the Grand, most of them will go left on Division to go back wherever they staged and to find their vehicles and take their float back. Or they'll hang a right and go right down to the ball fields.
Oh, so it might be easier just to meet the
I think
board
it'd be
members
easier
here.
if you just met here, then get into your convertible and your golf cart and then head that way.
That
Because
was it.
you're not gonna have very much room to park down by the schools at all.
Right, okay,
That's true.
that works.
And all those roads are close too. Yeah, that's true.
Harold's on the walk, he's close enough.
Okay.
Except for getting back after.
Well, I don't want any gummy bears in the car anyhow, so,
What, chocolate?
no.
Troy, what kind of use are we getting out of the fitness center?
I was talking to Red the other day, they're gonna, it's been open from 5 to 8 by Ben, and they're part-time lieutenant staff, and then Christie during the day. No one's really coming before 6, so Reggie told me yesterday they're not gonna open until 6 from now on. 6 to 8, they'll shorten those hours. But we want to give them a month to see who used it. There's probably 20 to 30 a week, depending on the day. Anywhere from 1 person to 7 people. The seniors, they do sign in during the day when they go work out, but one day I drove by and there were 7 cars out front working out, and one day I drove by and there was none. So it's been very, like she and I talked about, once the weather gets colder, it gets darker sooner, we think it'll be more of a turnout.
I was talking to Terry today at National Night Out, and she said the same thing. It's summer, everyone's gone, they're trying to get their last vacation before school starts, and she thought it'd probably pick up.
So in the winter time, especially when we had the partnership with the middle school, I mean, we had 4 or 5 people in there every morning, and that was only just for the morning, we don't have it open all day. But it's not really cost us anything else during the day, because Chris is there, we're paying her elsewise, so it's kind of, you know, it's a good question, we kind of play it by ear. So we know, 6 to 8 is realistic for the morning. The evening, we're kind of gauging now. Now that baseball, softball's done, parents aren't really down there for practices and games, so I don't see a lot of use, so we'll just have to play that by ear. But like next summer, maybe do 5 days a week in the winter time, and come next May, go down to 3 days a week. I just don't know until we kind of figure that out. So yeah, we're kind of watching that. It's finally quote unquote complete. Ray's going to pick up some shelving so people can put stuff in little cubicles, but everything else looks pretty nice down there. So I kind of monitor on next door. I've heard some people really kind of rave about how they enjoy working out down there. So.
How about the work that was getting done on the old part of the community center? Is that getting, that contractors to start working on any of that yet, or what's the timeline on that?
Well, Dan and I are still putting together a bid sheet. He met with a contractor last week when I was gone, and he made a proposal. Dan and I are gonna bring him back in and talk to him about, it's kind of like when we contract with Bob Trev on the initial senior center. For a flat fee, they're willing to put together a spec sheet, all the outline details of all the materials and changes and the improvements, and then help us bid it out to the other contractors. So he's not really a contractor, he's an engineer, basically an architect firm. It'd be a lot, I think much more affordable than we did with Mr. Fred, because it's not a whole add-on, it's renovation.
But the outside, have they started out doing because we already passed that and.
Yeah,
The roof's done.
The roof's done.
the siding's all done, the roof's all done, we have 2 tones of green on there.
Yeah, what's your, are we happy with the outcome of the roof color?
Yes.
We are?
For $6,000 we are to fix it.
I think the two-tone looks great.
I was hoping it was gonna match a little bit better than it
We
does.
can match it because this is a specially paint in order to, he had 4 or 5 colors that were template colors that he had in stock, and this green was the closest one we had. When we picked up, basically from the magazine, it was pretty close, but when he got it on there, it's a lot different, it's a little lighter. So we asked him, what would it take to tint it darker? It's about $6 grand. So I called Ada and I said, I think we'll just live with it for right now, but it's a lot better than it was.
No, it certainly is.
Has a lovely ambiance.
Just as a, I don't know, I'm not trying to talk bad about it.
Okay.
It looks almost faded already.
A seafoam green versus a hunter green.
It has a faded appearance to it. I hope it holds up to the sun.
It should, I mean, it's a pretty reputable company, they've been in business a long
Absolutely.
time.
And it's warranty, right?
I don't know how long.
And he has $6,000 in the bank.
It was a good warranty.
But everything's sealed and patched appropriately. It's coated with a very thick primer plus a top coat with the green. That's step 1 is to get that roof, and it's a very old roof. The contractor said it wasn't it's from 1986 when it was built. He said it wasn't a high quality commercial metal roof to begin with. But again, it was a donated building.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna complain about that.
I'm sure the integrity of the product that they put on is great. The
Yeah.
color could match a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could have matched it exactly for another 25,000 with a brand new roof.
It's more than that, yeah, right.
So, the initial bid was 50K. Otherwise, I know there's more I can talk about, but I won't unless you have any questions. We'll just, get ready for Harvest Daze next week, and then being on the 21st.
You guys got your shirt signed with your community? Okay.
Those are gonna be worn at the parade, is that the plan?
Yeah, we can, yeah, parade. I'll be running around Friday and Saturday helping wherever.
We do throw out candy. David does the
Yeah.
stockpiles at Sam's Club for the police and for you. So don't worry about that. We'll take care of that.
I was gonna go do that, so I'll let you.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, what is it gonna do? Okay. Awesome. Okay, so moving on, I wanted to go over the survey results you guys got. It looks, I don't, none of this is surprising to me. 93 results, Mary? Is that what we have?
97, I think, but some were,
That's right, 92 and skip, thank you.
Or what?
some were incomplete.
Incomplete.
People wanted to, vote for number
Oh, yeah.
1 3 times, and that doesn't work, because that's not the instructions. So those votes were thrown out of the calculation.
And some also, they only fill out questions they liked, and other they left blank.
Yeah,
So that's not uncommon.
so that's a decent turnaround for, I mean, compared to comp plan. So I think if you guys are okay with moving forward, I'm probably want to get moving on all 5 of these committees. Now, I don't know if you've seen on Nextdoor, we had somebody comment about doing an event with our horseshoe pits and our mud volleyball thing, just as I said. So if we, maybe it goes in the Parks, Trails, and Open Space Committee, but if we could be an event committee, if you will. And one of the big purposes too, just to remind you guys, is to make sure that we can have these sort of things, have the community take ownership in these events and these, you know, want to build a splash pad. I'm going to take that as an example. Want to build a splash pad. The committee goes through costs, different ideas, and they go through the motions. then they, you know, come up with a way of how we're gonna pay for it. They present to us, or if, I would like to have one board member in each committee, so you can kind of, I don't want it to be too formal, I don't want to scare people away, but it does have to be formal, so that we can, you know, it's a part of our town. And, so that way, they can be going through the GoCo grants, Troy doesn't have to do that, but have the community take some of this on, some ownership in these things they want to see happen in town. And I think we have to set it up with a decent foundation. I think this is a good start of that foundation, and let them run with it. It used to be in the past that our rec district, or our rec department was a committee, did not belong to town hall. And the committee fell apart and town hall took it over. And same happened, senior center really falling apart, but it used to be separate. And, you know, town owns the capital, but these committees run it, if you will. I kind of like to see that happen moving forward. You know, volleyball pits and horseshoe pits and movies in the park, and I think we can have committees head that up and advise the board on how to perform.
So what's the next logical step? I mean, we have to be realistic. Our pool is probably going to be small in participants, right? We only had 94 people even return the survey.
Absolutely.
Which was
500 residents.
1/3 of the people that participated in most recent election, just by reference.
Right. So what I'd like to do is start talking to people and start getting these committees built up, and they might be, you know, small to begin, you know, 4 to 5 people, and get them rolling and see what we can get off the ground. We don't need to meet often. It doesn't need to be, I don't want it to be a lot of work for anybody. We're all volunteers. And I definitely don't want it to be work for staff. Too much work for staff, but I don't want to add anything to them.
Right.
So, if you guys are good with that moving forward, I will try and seek people to fill these spots. Yeah.
We're going to start with the 5 listed, right? That
Yeah,
was the idea?
Yeah, the public safety one, you know, I'm thinking that's probably gonna be more like, what's
Yeah, I was
that?
thinking maybe we start with like
Yes.
2 and see how many people but I guess there could be different.
Yeah, because you know, I've talked to several people, they don't wanna be involved in the parks one, but they wanna be involved in the business one. Now, the business one, Troy and I are going to approach all the business owners in town, and I'm gonna see how many, I would like the business one to turn into a chamber.
Yes.
But, you know, how they evolve is up to your members, is how I see it. So, you guys are good with me moving forward with those, that's what I'd like to do.
Is there gonna be like a 1-page application for which committee they want to be part of?
Yeah, Mary said that we do have to have, you know, on record who's part of these committees. And so, yeah, there'll be a small application. Is there any committees you guys would be interested to be a part of? And maybe that's who takes minutes, you know, can do that, facilitate that for those discussions.
Parks and open space, or youth, whichever. Either one I'd be interested in. And are we gonna limit people to only being serving on one committee?
I don't think
Maybe on
so.
multiple.
Yeah, I don't want to burn anybody out, but I think everybody should know their own limitations.
Right.
You know, so I don't think so. I think the more involvement we have to other people will see that and go, well, I can get involved in something. You know, and hopefully, I might be overly optimistic, we can get a little more involvement in the town.
Yeah. It's worth a shot.
Absolutely. Larry,
Yes,
would you like to oversee the finance and investment one?
I would.
Thank you. Nick?
Happily volunteer.
Thank you.
I'll work on the chamber.
Chamber.
Or the business one.
You guys have one that starts the fancy?
Will it be used for public safety?
Okay. Harold?
It's not on.
What's yours? Let's hear it. Let her rip fingertip.
This is your time to shine.
Right now,
I don't know what those are saying, but this is back,
So parks, trails, open space. No, I don't want you to feel
Infrastructure.
obligated either, okay? Yeah, so there was talk of somebody wanting to do an infrastructure one.
infrastructure upgrades on sidewalks. Goes under bridge.
Like an infrastructure, so,
Well, we've got it right here on the bottom. too.
well, that is a different,
For infrastructure. Infrastructure is like upgrades like sidewalks, paving, water and sewer projects.
so that one is important issues facing the community.
Okay.
It's not necessarily a committee, but that doesn't mean that we don't have a committee. We can still do one like that. I know several
No, that
people.
would be my interest.
Okay, let's write that down.
kind of more of roads and sidewalks. I think that on the survey was the biggest interest.
Yes,
Street
yeah,
improvements and sidewalks, Charles Avenues, so on and so forth.
as far as important issues moving forward, yes, it was huge.
Very good.
Well,
Can
there's
I ask
several,
a question? Mayor, you have the survey in front of you as well.
No,
Vice
but
Chancellor.
I've looked at it a lot.
I'm sure you put it together, right? So if it says on the top, 1 being the most important, 5 being the least important.
Mhm.
Are the graph, if the line is the longest, does that mean it was popular? It's closer to 5, right? So
Yes, on most of them, the second page, gives the breakdown of the actual percentage of people.
okay, but the
And
graph
then
is, the graph is just the how many people voted for it.
the graph is kind of a weighted average based on the total number of answers and how many picked each. 'Cause like everybody voted for parks, trails, and open space, but they didn't all vote the same number. So it's a weighted average that shows
Okay.
which number
But a
was the
longer
most
line
predominant.
is a
The
more
longer
positive
line
thing.
is more
They want
interest.
it, okay.
yeah, so I know,
Overall.
I numbered mine based
So,
on the numbers.
yeah, I just wanted to make
That's it.
sure, because if it was
River
going
access.
towards 5,
River access is
it's the highest.
Yep, it's the highest one.
That's what makes sense.
And then the recycling center, and then the splash pad.
Yeah, I know
Thank you, I
that.
apologize, I just wanted to
No,
make sure. I was
that's-
making it clear.
I thought the numbers, the way the percentages and averages were printed looked odd until I really looked at it closely and saw what that was supposed to represent. It's to take out the outliers
Yeah.
and just tell you what related to all of the questions, what finished in what position
Absolutely,
of
thank you very
interest.
much. I appreciate you putting this together as
Yes.
well.
Yes.
Anytime, it was easy. So if that's a tool that's helpful
Yeah,
to you, this was just real short. Some of those surveys get
so this,
to where people start and they don't wanna quit.
the way that this one was put together by you, Mary, might be a good one for the charging station versus CNG, if we want to move forward with it. I heard really good things about what I heard.
Is that, and I would like to add some more some numbers as to what we're looking at spending. Is that gentleman, Claude, that she's talking about, is that someone that you can talk to? You
Yeah,
have a
no
relationship
problem.
with?
I'll just give him a call or email and send me his budget, what it ended up costing them and for how many stations.
Yeah, if you could, I think that, we need that information.
That'll give you a
We wanna
realistic.
put ourselves in debt on some charging stations.
I don't think they have a big one. I think it's a 2 or 4 vehicle fueling station.
And we're talking about an 80% match, right? Out there, where they're looking at,
Right.
they're gonna pay for 80%. But we don't know what 80%
It
was.
could be 80% of a million and our house is 200,000. Do we wanna spend that on this or sewer again or something, who
No,
knows?
we need some, at least ballpark numbers.
I'm sorry. I can find that out.
Thank you very much. So how are you gonna advertise the committees? Next door, are we gonna put something on the
Yep,
sign as well?
yep, so
I
we'll
think
put
we should
something.
try and put a bunch of different venues,
Yep,
right?
Facebook, I'll put something together for Harvest Daze too.
That would be great, and then we
And-
have a sign up booth
Yeah.
at Harvest Daze.
Yeah, so next door, my Facebook page, a pretty decent following there.
Nice.
Yeah, the sign, see, we can put something out in the newsletter, the next newsletter coming out, and leave it open for a little while, and maybe this is something we leave open and we start at the beginning of the year, or, you know, maybe we have, I don't know, so, yeah, but it's something I really wanna get going, I think.
Absolutely.
No.
Can't do it
I'd
for-
like to make a comment.
Yes, please, Larry.
There was some mention of this infrastructure.
Yes.
And seeing that the biggest responsibility the town has probably to its citizens is centered around infrastructure projects of one type or another. Granted, it's tied to finance in some respects, it's tied to trails, parks, recreation, and so on. But the unmentioned portion typically is the sewer, water lines, streets, sidewalks, so on. It certainly, in my understanding, is the majority of the budget. So maybe a committee that incorporates infrastructure might not be a bad idea. I can see that it overlaps into a lot of other areas.
I don't know how many participants we're gonna get.
Let's get pretty deep into that.
Well-
You know, when I see,
It's not any fun to talk about that stuff.
well, it's true, I mean, you know, who wants to talk about sewage? You know, but, it's all fine and well until you flush the toilet and it doesn't go anywhere.
But I'm not making light of it.
Oh, I understand you're not, I don't take you wrong. But at the same time, it's, those types of projects are a lot more higher priority to this board, or should be, because it's what keeps things going. And a lot of people, myself included, take a lot of it for granted.
How much can we change, right? We're gonna get this study from JVA and we're gonna have one or two options, right? So the committee's not gonna be able to guide us
Well,
on
with
that.
their-
So what kind of input are they gonna be able to give on some of the stuff which is pretty cut and dry?
Well, in some,
Unless they're
in
gonna,
some,
I can see what sidewalk they would recommend we pave next, right? Something like that, I guess.
some subject matter that probably not gonna have any input, I mean,
Right.
or none that's gonna sway the priorities that are in place already. But when I hear suggestions that we need an indoor swimming pool, or another dog park, or I just, in the back of my head, going, well, yeah, all those things would be wonderful. When do you wanna approve your mill levy increase?
Well, and that's why the
Where's the money coming from?
part of putting these committees together is to help people, take them on a journey, educate them in the process. We don't
Precisely.
just have a ton of money, you know, so have them help us come up with a way to pay for it. So, yeah, you
Precisely,
know,
I mean, you know, it's all about education and what the board is faced with.
Yep,
You know, this is the income, these are the expenditures. You tell me where we're gonna come up with a $2 million swimming pool.
yeah, I'd love to do it, yeah.
Well,
exactly.
yeah,
We
I'd
all
love
would.
to be able to say, yeah, you can have one of those. But until I see it in the bank, it's out of question. It's, I mean, hopefully this committee idea will take off, and the idea of some increase in the sense of community pride and involvement will come along with that. Because it's not just 7 people in this room that have the town's best interests at heart. I would like to think there's quite a number of other people out there who plan on making this home, staying here. They have a dog in the fight. They wanna see the town improve across the board. Whether it's police protection or paved streets or sidewalks or swimming pools or whatever, recycling programs. But the question really comes down to how do you balance all that? how do you prioritize what's necessary, first of all, you know, what's needed from what's wanted, and the budget to pay for it? We don't have, we're not the only source of that information. We're not the only 7 people in this town that have the ability to look at the issues, look at the problem, and select the projects that are gonna be done with some kind of sense of priority as to what needs to be done.
Well, I have quite a few public works people living in my circle alone that, you know, they come and talk to me about streets and roads, and that's their number one concern. Same, you know, the neighbor on the other side, you know, they want a splash pad, you know, and then the neighbor across the street, they want, you know, river access. And so I like the idea of an infrastructure advisement group committee.
I would like each application, each committee to have a defined scope and outcome,
Yep.
because
So
I don't
these-
take this the wrong way, but what I don't want is committees telling my chief or my director what to do
Exactly.
on fixing the streets and
Right.
buying cop cars. I
Yep.
can't have that.
No,
That's what you were doing for me.
right,
That's our relationship.
It's
yeah,
gonna be a tough balance, right?
it will,
That's why I think the board member probably has to be the head of the committee,
yes,
right?
yep, I agree,
At
I
least
agree.
to guide it,
Yes,
you know, to what,
as far as, it just needs to be known that the board member talks for the committee,
Yeah.
as far as when it comes to public employee, you don't talk to an employee,
No, right.
obviously.
Well, that's why we have to set those guardrails down right away,
Right.
so that everybody knows that, okay, this is just a,
An advisement group.
yeah, it's an advisory.
So, Mary, I believe we set up definitions for these 5 already.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's going to be a fine line for sure. Absolutely.
And next month, likely in September, we'll have our first budget meeting. What I typically do last few years, that first meeting, we talk about capital projects. Don't shake your head, Troy. We're gonna have- But that capital projects is all encompassing, everything's from swimming pools and wastewater plants and new water tanks to streets, roads, sidewalks, so it's all encompassing projects. So the infrastructure committee could, you know, at least attend those and they say, okay, what are your recommendations on roads and streets? Then Larry's committee saying, well, we can't pay for it, we can pay for it. Ultimately, you as a governing body, you're gonna have to say so.
Yes, yes.
So,
Absolutely.
In every case.
I
it's
couldn't agree
advisement.
more, Troy. It makes me uncomfortable just to even have you bring up that first example, because I can see that happening. We would definitely not want that.
Well, and I bring it up especially because when I first came here, and this is not good or bad, neither here or there, but even when I was police chief in St. Mary's, Kansas, you know, there was each board member, or called councilmen, were assigned to a department. What happened is, sometimes it worked well. Like when I came here, the mayor pro tem was my liaison to the board, and we chatted once a month, and we talked about things, hey, during budget, you know, this is maybe we're talking in December. For next year, I'd like to replace a vehicle, to do this, or do that. So it's kind of like staff meeting with the mayor every Monday morning. You have that connection that stays connected. I've also seen people, like a 75-year-old former public works director be assigned as liaison to public works director, and that just clashes.
Well, we're
That's
not-
how we did it back in 1980, not how we do it now in 2018.
Right, we're not
So it goes both
micromanaging.
ways. It goes
Yeah,
both ways.
Absolutely. No micromanaging.
So,
Well, you have to keep in mind too, if you reach into the community and say, help us, and they come to you and say, okay, we will do this, and you constantly tell them, no, we can't.
their
They
advice.
won't, I know, but they won't participate.
That's a part
Very
of
long.
taking them on a journey. Okay,
Mhm.
you want this 5 million square foot pool, awesome, help me figure out how to pay for it. And you take them
Right.
on that journey.
Be really, really clear and specific at the onset,
that's when the
Mhm.
scope has to be very clear,
Yes.
that's the outcome.
Yep, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
or it'll do more harm than good.
Absolutely, yep. I'm
There's
not-
always that risk regardless, Mary,
know.
unfortunately.
I know.
But I think we have to try.
I agree.
I agree, but
It's a slippery slope
It is.
though.
sometimes a narrower scope is better than,
Yes,
you know,
okay,
a park project
right.
to form a committee around than parks and open space.
So maybe not infrastructure, maybe sidewalks.
Maybe.
Okay, that makes
Start
sense.
small, let them
Swallow that.
feel they've accomplished some things and gained some experience and feel comfortable, know the terms they're gonna come in. The first board meeting that you guys came to
Mhm.
was like, why do we have to do that? Why do we say that? Why?
Sure.
And they'll feel the same way
Mhm.
and let them work their way up.
So with that thought in mind, we need to brainstorm around some projects or potential projects that are feasible, that are actually gonna happen, instead of
Maybe.
just talk, right?
Capital improvement
So-
project.
Yeah, maybe the parks, trails, and open space, we start out with, like, the gentleman on next door with his, horseshoes and volleyball pit. He private messaged me, he's very interested in being a part of creating that event. And maybe that's that first project.
Could the Platte River Farms prospect be a parks and open space thing in the committee, right?
Definitely.
That's all feasible enough, we've already
Yes.
got some traction with that, right?
It's really for new ideas, like Riverview, Lincoln Park,
Right.
and Cornell, they're pretty well developed.
Right.
Right.
Not much, other than building like a little practice field or tennis court at Cornell Park, which is a good piece of idea, so you're using dead space. The other parks are community centers developed. How can we make, better utilize the horseshoe volleyball fields? How can we develop a trail along the south line?
Right, yeah, you don't wanna say, we need a park or a trail with river access, we don't have property, so it dies right there. We need to have a way to keep it moving forward, so it could start out with just events until we, acquire new things.
That's gonna be brainstorming, we all need to think about it.
Yeah.
But I agree, I think it would be best to start small with things that can actually get done and they can see, hey, this happened and we were a part of it.
Right, so, yeah, one of my ideas was let everybody come to the table, throw all their ideas out, big, small, and then we picked one to focus on, have the group vote on, pick one group, one idea to focus on, and maybe we focus on the small and move forward with it, but yeah.
There's some realistic, like public safety, the goal could be starting a strong neighborhood watch program.
Yep,
And
absolutely.
that's a realistic goal that they can be hands-on, actively involved in, so figuring out how to do that with all the committees.
Yep,
Some are gonna be easier than others.
yes. Absolutely.
So,
I guess one thing I was thinking, like for the parks, one, I guess I have interest in that one, but was, the committee could have a day where they pick up trash at all of the parks around the town, or like the signage, some of the signs need to be repainted or touched up. Could the committee take care of that instead of the public works doing that? Some of those type of things. Those things that we can get together on a Saturday, and make a visual impact on the town, get everyone together.
People want to take on track. Yeah.
the public safety committee, they can be part of it tonight, National Night Out, maybe other police events, hands-on with the kids, and some school functions too.
Yep.
So you'll just remember that.
I am, if everyone's okay with that. I don't want to add more to you guys, obviously keep you all in the loop, you know exactly what's happening, but I don't want to, that's not the purpose, is to add more. The purpose is to create community while taking some of it off, have more ownership of the town.
Just when we get to the point, Mary, you'll have to give us instructions as to how we conduct these meetings.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that can be pretty informal.
I think the big thing is we need to take minutes, right, so we can log them in town's website.
That
Is there
would be
any
the
idea?
easiest way for, the board member to convey the ideas and make sure that they're not accused of any kind of slanting of the information.
Okay.
or
Summary?
if they're just, summary notes maybe
Okay.
of the discussion, and we can put all that stuff on the website, so anybody in town can stay involved, even if they don't feel like they wanna participate.
Right.
They can know what's going on still.
Cool. All right, anything else?